Hey everyone, I'm Charting Man Dan with the Chart Guys. I've traded every cannabis vote in the United States going all the way back to 2010, and we've got one coming up here in 2024. We'll talk about that and what our expectations are in terms of the price action as we head into November, and we'll look at the charts of everything else. Before we get to the charts, going to extend a free trial offer for 2 weeks for anybody interested. Click the link in the comments of this video. And the catch is you won't be able to talk in the chat room because when we have a bunch of new people, it's very unorganized when you don't know the rules of the chat room and how we do things, but you'll have access to our live streams, our educational content, our chat room, and certainly our cannabis chat room as we continue to get ready for November. All right, so the theme remains the same. There's clearly relative strength in the Florida names, but there are potentials that could hold them back, such as if MSOS remains weak, that's definitely going to be a weight on things. The two most important things fundamentally, well, one's technical, but heading into the election from here, and at this point we've got 36 trading days, which isn't a whole lot. I mean, 36 trading days, if we're looking at this chart here, that is pretty much this much action, a little bit more, but this many trading days until the election. It's a decent chunk, but not a ton. It's going to come here quicker than we think. So polls, as I keep saying, the probabilities of the polls are the most important thing for the preceding price action. And again, I'm going to use my experiences in trading these in the past, most notably Washington and Colorado when they legalized these stocks. And again, if you want to look back at the history, you got to be looking at the junk penny stocks because that's all there was. MJNA, HEMP, and there's a handful of others, but those back in 2013 is what you want to look at for the history. And what happened is we saw bullish action leading up into the vote because the polls kept telling us more and more, this is likely to pass, this is very sure it's going to pass, this is going to pass. You know, that night leading up into the election the next day, the vote, I was, 85, 90% sure both were going to pass because of the data that we had. And so was the rest of the market. So a lot of that was priced in. We ran up and had a bullish move into the actual vote. The actual vote was a little sell-off, and then the first day of sales was another bull market move. And the reason it was another bull market move is because there was massive media attention. Everybody was filming the lines out, around the block, and the media was all over it. And that was the first time that the United States had really seen that. We had California at that point legal, but this was, and it caught me by surprise. I did not anticipate as bullish a reaction to the known event. The date was already known. We knew this was going to happen. And of course, you look at Canada, and the first day of sales was the top, and it was nothing but down from there because all of the run-up and the hype was done leading into that first day of sales. So there wasn't a media run-up into the hype of the first day of sales of Colorado and Washington, just some slight differences. So how does that apply to now? The data that we get on the polls is going to be very key. The more likely that it's going to pass, the more the bull move is going to happen. The short-term bull move is going to happen before the actual vote. If we go into the vote and it's a 50-50, the polls are saying 63% chance, 64% chance, and it looks like it could pass, but I'm not sure, then we're not going to fully price in the move because people are not going to be aggressively buying for the probability that it passes. Because again, if this doesn't pass, these names are going to dump, right? So we have to keep that as part of our game plan as well. Even if I think it's 75% chance that it's going to pass, 1 in 4 times, there's a sucker punch, big double-digit percentage drop for a failure. So have a game plan for both scenarios. But it's all about the polls from here. And so, again, the more it's known that it's going to pass, the more the move's going to take place first. Then I would expect to sell the news, and then I would expect a little bit of bullish action leading up into the actual day of sales, which will be 6 or 8 months later. So there's a lot of time in between. But if we do not know, if it's a 50-50 and then it passes, then we look for a bull move to take place after the vote actually takes place. So just keep in mind that's the way the markets work with probabilities. It's always probabilities. And if the market, like right now, we're heading into the FOMC next week, and the market is saying there's a 50% chance of a 25 basis point cut and a 50% chance of a 50-point basis cut. And so I know it's going to be a very volatile reaction on Wednesday. How do I know that? Because half of the market is going to be wrong. And most recently on the FOMC meetings, we've had, 90% chances of knowing what's going to happen. And so very few people have been wrong. But we know half the people are going to be wrong in this meeting coming up. And so the market is not able to accurately price in the data that is coming. So we have a video called What Does Priced In Mean? And check out on YouTube, Chart Guys Priced In, because this is a very important concept in markets. All right, charts. So MSOS, we're looking for a daily higher low to form, anything above 637. But we're also looking for the possibility that a weekly lower high is forming, anything under 780. And again, we've just been seeing a very clear weekly downtrend the entire time since our euphoria top, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, double top, lower low, lower high, lower low. That's a trend. That's a very clear downtrend. This is a weak trend. There's nothing on this chart that's telling me bulls are about to take over. So again, if everything looked like this, I would have no long positions. It's because Trulieve looks very different than this chart that I have that long position. So what I would like to see is a daily high or low set and a bull move back up to the recent high of 724. Essentially bulls keeping the daily uptrend going. We got a daily uptrend and a weekly downtrend. Which is going to win out? We're either going to lose the daily uptrend and set the weekly lower high, or we're going to keep the daily uptrend and fend off that weekly lower high from being set just yet. But overall, no big dump after the big move up. This is what I would call healthy consolidation after the gap up. Trying to build a base of support in the 670s and 680s. $7 is resistance the last few days. But again, the bulls have a lot of work to do here. Not going to, got to keep it real. Even though I want it to be bullish to help my long position, it's not at this point. Something has to change. TCNNF looks very different. TCNNF, as we know, is testing 4+ month highs. If TCNNF was doing the same thing as MSOS, this would have broken bear and we'd be trading, at about $9 and looking for the potential of a weekly lower high. It's a very different chart. The consolidation is sideways after the move up. And we'll take it, to go straight up 30% and then consolidate sideways as opposed to retracing a good bit of that move to try and find a higher low. That's ideal. And, to close over $11 the last couple of days, that's great. So short-term support, 1071. Short-term resistance, 1125. If we get over the 1120s, there is a lack of resistance until 1350. So things can potentially open up a bit. What is missing is volume, without a doubt. I have to see volume continue to increase. This orange line down here is the 20-day average volume, and it is going up. Back here in August, 20-day average was 270,000, and now it's currently 370,000. But again, it's, you get these nice high volume moves, and then it's low volume, high volume move. When everybody reacts to a headline, then volume fades off. The fact that we put up $1.5 million traded on Friday, that's a joke. That is no volume at all whatsoever. And it has to be more than that. Have to see that volume average, by the time we're talking 2 weeks from now, heading into October, I want to see that at 470,000 average. So definitely need more volume. It will be a red flag to me in my long positions if we do not see volume continue to increase towards the election. A lot of people out there don't think we're going to see any run up into the election. I want that to be the position. When I am in a position that is profitable with some nice cushion, which is the case right now, I want as many people against me as possible. If retail right now on social media was all, we're about to run up into the election, and everybody had that opinion, it would be a red flag for me. I would not want that to be the case because that tells me everybody's already got their positions. Who's left to be buying at that point? I want as many skeptics as possible with as much cash on the sidelines as possible, not expecting a bull move, because the way markets work is, I want to be selling my position to them 50% higher from where I entered. So, buying a little bit of fear on the rescheduling, hearing news, and buying the first time Trump talked about Amendment 3 before he gave the very clear endorsement. Those are allowing me to potentially be positioned to be selling to the people that were more cautious. And then once they get more confident in Amendment 3 passing, those are the people that I sell to 40, 50% higher. So we'll see if the bulls can pull it off. As of right now, there are no red flags. I still need to see a couple things that I want to see here, but Trulieve remains the lead bull. TCNNF divided by MSOS. We have hit a new all-time high in relative strength 6 of the last 8 trading days. And again, it's just been a year of relative strength. This is clearly the best name to be in, has been. GTBIF, simple statement. If weekly EMA 12 is resistance, the bears have absolute complete control. That's been the case for months, and we're still rejecting. We're still in a weekly downtrend. Nothing changes if we just set a lower high compared to $12. Daily chart, again, little bull moves here, but not meaningful. Just little one-off headline move and then give most of it back. It's not ideal. So what would we need to see? Break $12. If we don't break $12, it's just a weekly lower high, and it's going to take a good bit longer for these bulls to try and shift this momentum. But there's no fake outs here. There are times where there's fake outs in trading, and it's difficult. Just make a simple statement. If weekly EMA 12 is resistance, I'm not bullish GTBIF. And when that changes, you'll have a very clear trigger point of, okay, this is now different. And your mindset can now shift because something has changed. But if nothing is changing, nothing shifts. Curaleaf, still extremely weak. That's a potential weekly bear flag. Anything under 445 is a weekly lower high here. Again, if my only choices were to be in Green Thumb or Curaleaf with what their charts look like, I would have 0 positions in the cannabis sector right now. So it's, a lot of people have been annoyed with how Canadian names, see the bull moves up and the fundamentals don't matter of the US names. I mean, here we have a scenario. We'll get to these names in just a moment, but CGC the last 4 weeks is down 30+%. TCNNF the last 4 weeks is up 8%. That's a very stark difference in what these stocks are doing because the fundamentals are mattering. Obviously, this is Florida mattering for Trulieve. AYRWF. So AYRWF divided by MSOS technically broke this level on Friday in terms of the most relative strength that we've seen, but it's not convincing. It's on the open, and again, these OTC opens for me. I'm still considering this resistance, so we have not broken this level yet. But again, bulls really want to see that happen because we know when Trulieve had it way back when, and again, I was talking about this on Dale's report before it broke, if Trulieve breaks this wall, it'll be a very significant shift in the relative weakness to relative strength. And from that point forward, there was no looking back. And so I'm not saying AYRWF is going to do that, but I definitely want to see AYRWF divided by MSOS get to the strongest it's been in the last 6+ months to show us, again, I want to see as many Florida names outperforming as possible for that theme to remain in play and continuing. But AYRWF on its own here, weekly resistance of 218. We did technically break it by a few pennies, but still struggling there. I mean, I would essentially just be calling this a resistance zone of 220 to 239, where we reject, still rejecting. And I added this position a bit later. Again, I'm 80% Trulieve and 20% AYRWF with the capital that I'm allocating to this sector into the vote. And I'm not as nearly as comfortable. My entry here was a bit later, and so I'm just chopping around break even right now. And so, if we fade back, that position will be in the red. But I've got enough cushion in Trulieve profitable position that I'm okay with that positioning. Again, just a small little dash here compared to a large core of TCNNF. And again, TCNNF, what would be a very big red flag would be a break of $8. We're not close to that at this point. If Trulieve is going to break $8 from here, that means MSOS is heading to all-time lows. SNDL, I still love the tightening weekly range. Anything under 225 is just a lower high. It's possible we tighten up for another couple of weeks. We got to talk about the broader market. So I said 2 things matter for this sector from here into the vote: the polls and the probabilities, and also the broader market. The broader market is looking just fine on the weekly chart. S&P 500 just had, top 5 highest close ever, roughly. But look at the weekly chart. I mean, that's the 3rd highest weekly close ever. We're recovering, fear dump, full recovery, higher low, back to testing all-time highs. IWM is more of a weekly equilibrium. IWM is our gauge for risk on, risk off in the markets. And so if I'm a cannabis bull, I really want to see IWM break this equilibrium bullish. The FOMC on Wednesday is going to have a significant impact on what IWM does here in the short term. But again, this is a major factor as well. Broader market sentiment, is there fear or is there confidence in risk on? Again, it's not tick for tick correlated with this sector, but it's a sentiment gauge. And we want there to be confidence in the market for people to be willing to put on some extra risk in the highest risk reward sector that exists in markets, which is cannabis and psychedelics. So SNDL tightening weekly, daily supports down at 194, and the daily chart can chop around while this weekly equilibrium continues to tighten. But I would expect SNDL to have a pretty significant reaction to the FOMC as well here in the short term with the market. Trulieve, another hold of the 160 zone. Again, we've been talking about this forever. It is the zone that everybody can see from space as far as support. We just dropped down to 162. We held it again and saw a bounce of 13 cents. So again, this is just giving so many possibilities to position. You buy in the 160s, you sell partial in the 170s or 180s. I mean, we've gotten this opportunity time and time again. So if I'm interested in Tilray, which I'm not, but if I were, you just got to churn your position. I buy 165, sell half 172. And if I've done that a couple of times, my break even is now in the 150s, and I can set a break even stop loss. If this support holds, I've got a great position. If it doesn't, I stop out and don't lose much, if anything. But again, this chart is saying volatility is coming on Trulieve when this range breaks. And again, just watching this long-term downtrend line and this base of support. And you can argue it's a falling wedge. You can argue it's a descending triangle. Falling wedge is a bull pattern. A descending triangle has a horizontal base and is a bearish continuation pattern. But I'm just waiting for this tight range to break to give us that clarity. Maybe earnings will do it. If we stay tight into earnings, that will probably be the case. But very clear support. CGC is all bear. Again, anything under 721, just a lower high, which means we can go, 30% and just form a weekly lower high? It's just very weak. There's nothing going on here. Nobody's interested. You just got to call it like it is. It's just a slow bleed. And something has to change. We have to change. We have to break the weekly lower highs for anything to change. Cannabis, or psychedelics, I should say. Solid bull Friday. Why? For me, correlation to the biotech sector. This psychedelic space definitely has, again, it's not every day. It's not for tick for tick on the 5-minute time frame, but we have a weak bounce, but some bounce for 4 days, and then a big green day. Biotech sector, yes, its positioning is very different where it stands on the chart overall, but here's your bounce, nothing special, 4 days, and there's the biggest day of the bounce on Friday, and excuse me. Again, it just looks very similar if you're just looking at last week's action in a vacuum. It's very similar. We hit our low last Friday. Here's our low on Friday. A little bit of sideways, some inside bars, bounce going, sideways, bounce going, big green day, big green day. There's absolutely some correlation there. And so, if you're watching the psychedelic space, you want to see XBI, look at this wall on XBI. Long-term wall, 103s, 102s. If that breaks, again, if we get a bullish reaction to the FOMC, we're going to look for a leg up here in the biotech sector, and that will benefit the psychedelic sector a bit. So we're getting tight here, and a break is coming, but CMPS still has a lot of work to do. Base of support now down at 622. We did hold that level. But resistance all the way up at 854, still a ways away. We're just trading sideways right now. MNMD finally getting its weekly bounce going, but there's a ton of space for a weekly lower high. So just a little shift, building out a base of support, supply and demand, and now demand is exceeding supply in the short term. But again, still a ton of work to do. I have no interest in the psychedelic space right now. The way that I will trade the psychedelic space, again, my trading style in my career is I would call myself a hype specialist, because whether it's crypto or cannabis, I get into the momentum, I get nice big fast gains, and then I get out and I'm not bag holding because I sell into strength, not caring about nailing the top, not caring about leaving some money on the table, just securing my piece of the pie. And so the way that I will play the psychedelic space is not trying to buy weakness, not trying to nail a bottom. It's waiting for signs that there's volume, sexy headlines, and retail interest, and Reddit and Twitter and some FOMO. And that's when the momentum and the wind is at my back. I will not be nailing the bottom, but I'll be getting the meat of the move into the momentum have green positions right away because I'm playing with the trend and then selling into euphoria. Because again, I do believe, depending on the legal changes and things like that, but the psychedelic space has not had, I mean, there's been some euphoria here, absolutely. I mean, MNMD back in 2021, when the entire market was euphoria post CVID, had its, a big move there. But I do believe there are more big hype cycles coming for the psychedelic space where, we just see a couple 100% run in a few months, things like that. I don't know when. I don't know what the catalyst will be, which is why I'm not going to be positioning and hoping and just hoping it's going to happen soon. That's not my style. But again, I am confident that at some point in the future, I will have solid gains from a hype run in this sector. And I just keeping an eye on it. Every week, I don't look at these charts. I haven't looked at the CMPS chart. Friday was the first time I looked at it because someone was talking about its strength. So I check in once a week. Am I missing anything? No. But again, it's not sucking up my attention, just patiently waiting for when those stars align of all these puzzle pieces that are needed for a hype euphoria run. And volume is the most clear one that is needed, which is why it's most important for Trulieve and Cannabis as well. Check out that free trial if you're interested. Come hang out in the chat room with us. And I hope you have a great weekend. Do good things.